Hey everybody, here we are. We're about an hour north of Fredericton, and we're about to check out a historically significant site to the aviation history of the province. Unfortunately, this site is mostly forgotten and is in a very rural area of the province. So we're gonna go in and hopefully we can highlight a little bit of this history for you. So we're starting down this trail, and it's just off this dirt road. And it's actually well marked. They have these little flags everywhere. It's quite a boggy area actually, so you definitely want to wear boots if you come here. The area was clear-cutted, but now has started to regrow with all these pine trees. It's hard to say, if people don't come here and appreciate the history, how long it'll take before this area is totally overgrown. Here we are. We just came to the site and the reason why we've come to this location. This here is the plane wreckage of a TBM torpedo bomber. This plane crashed in 1958 and has been here ever since. Over here, there's a plaque and a dedication to the man who flew this aircraft, and we're gonna go over there and read about it. It reads, "In memory of pilot Thomas Reginald Marston, on June 12, 1958, 38-year-old pilot Thomas Reginald Marston tragically lost his life at this location. The crash occurred during a Spruce Budworm spraying flight originating from Juniper Airfield. His aircraft, a Grumman TBM-3 Avenger, CF-IMJ, tail number 600, operated by Skyway Air Services Limited, went into an uncontrollable stall at low altitude. Thomas Marston was from Stockport, England, learned to fly at Clareholme, Alberta, with the British Commonwealth Air Training Plan. He later served with the RAF as a fighter pilot and glider pilot in Norway, the Battle of Britain, India, and Burma." That's Tommy Marston there. These are some of the other Avengers, 604, 602. It would have been the same color scheme as these planes here. This is sponsored by the Canadian Aviation Historical Society, and I like that they put this here. This is an area, or this area is a significant historical aviation archaeological site. Please be respectful. Do not remove any aircraft wreckage. And I think that's a really good point, that if you do come to this location, make sure you do not take anything and respect this, as this is where a man tragically lost his life. This is the engine. We have the wings. This is part of the canopy. So this is where the pilot would have been sitting. The other wing, this is the tail section here. You can still see, oh, a squirrel going. You can still see part of the number 600, 60. On this side here, 600, 600, still in red, IMJ. It's made out of aluminum, so it should last a long time. I mean, it's been here 60-something years. So it's in good shape for seeing what it went through and how it was set on fire. Oh. You can see here that the rudder and the elevators are gone, as they were made out of canvas, and I believe that they would have rotted away. This truly is an amazing and forgotten piece of aviation history in the province of New Brunswick that this exists out here. This is the old ball turret ring for the turret gunner position. These aircraft had a crew of 3 originally during the war, but for this Spruce Budworm spraying, there was only one crew member, and it was the pilot. But you can see, I can't find any of the controls, so possibly someone's been here and they've taken some of the gauges away. But you can see how melted everything is. This aluminum has all melted as it was caught on fire after the crash. This was a pretty powerful engine. It had 1900 horsepower, and it was needed because these aircraft during the war, they were actually the heaviest single engine aircraft used. Here we are at one wingtip, the other's over there, just to show you how wide this aircraft was. You can still see the red that they had it painted. It's the front of the aircraft, the back of the aircraft over here. Looking at the wing here, I noticed you can still see part of the canvas. So that has survived all this time. It's good that the aircraft is still recognizable today, and that aluminum should last decades longer. This here is part of the mechanism for the stow wing type, which these planes were. They had their wings would fold up to give them more space on the aircraft carriers. So it would pivot off this single point, and then a hydraulic piston would go through and lock it in place. And I believe that's part of the piston assembly. So you can imagine the wing here flips up, same on the other side, flips up. You can see here the piston assembly. Right here, this is the rear wheel of the aircraft. So we're standing right in the tail section, would have been. And the tail's over here. So you can just see how twisted the wreck is. Right here, you still have some pulleys. So this is part of the tail. Some of the hoses that remain. The Spruce Budworm spraying would occur here in New Brunswick every year in the spring, which was the best time to get the insecticide onto the young worms and also onto the trees, which then would absorb the poison, and then any of the worms who weren't killed directly by the poison would eat and they would die soon after. Normally, they would operate in a team of 5 aircraft. So they would use 3 Avengers, just like this, and 2 Cessna planes, which they would use as pointer aircraft. So imagine the entire province set up in a grid pattern of about 12,500 acres each. The Cessnas would go to the area first, survey it, make sure it was the correct location, They would then call in the Avengers to come in. The Cessnas would then line up in a line. One would be halfway down the spray area, the other one would be at the beginning. They then would race down to the end, having the Avenger bombers, which would be separated about 8 aircrafts apart just to prevent any overspraying. They would race to the end of the spray area. By the time that middle Cessna got to the end, those bombers should also get to that exact spot. So at that point, they would tell them to stop spraying. The Avengers would then take a right turn and then a hard left turn to facilitate the 180-degree turn that they needed to do to then line back up and do the next spray. Unfortunately, it was during this turn that Tommy Marston's aircraft encountered a slipstream from the lead aircraft, as he was the number 2 aircraft. And at such a low speed and the angle, his aircraft stalled. He wasn't able to regain control, and because they were flying at only 150 feet roughly to facilitate the spraying, he wasn't able to actually recover the aircraft and crashed and lost his life. Tommy Marston, who was from England originally, had immigrated to Canada and was living in Langley, BC. His body was taken from this location and is buried in a cemetery in Langley, BC, with members of his family. The company that Tommy Marston worked for was Skyway Air Services Limited, and they were based out of Langley, BC. Every year, they would fly their Avengers from Langley, BC to New Brunswick for the Spruce Budworm spraying. They then, in July, would fly back to British Columbia for the forest fire season there and convert these Avengers back into water bombers to fight the forest fires. We're happy to see that they've erected these plaques here in recognition of the significance of this site and as a memorial to Tommy Marston, who unfortunately had lost his life. We want to thank Tommy Marston for his service to his country, and that we hope that he's resting in peace. So as a memento, I'd like to leave my poppy here because he was a war veteran. So thank you, Tommy, for your contribution. And I hope that you know that you're not forgotten.